So here I am, healthy brother, heal thy brother, and healthycrohns.com. This is another video that I'm doing in the process over these coming 12 months for the campaign with my brother, and in order to really take him on a journey, almost like a guinea pig of alternative medicine, and so that we can really look at how alternative medicine can cure Crohn's disease. Some of you may have already been part and supported the campaign. If that's the case, then really appreciate that, and looking forward to bringing you the journey live. And one of the things I wanted to do, this is my wonderful mum. Hey mum.
Hello, Simon.
Mum's been very scared about this interview, stroke conversation. More conversation, because this is like a Simon on the sofa with my mum, which is great. My creator right there, and the creator also of Lloyd, which is a gift in itself. And I just really wanted to bring this conversation to you guys. It's a short conversation, well, as long as it goes, but just to ask a few questions to my mum, who's been journeying with Lloyd and has experienced a lot of Lloyd's ups and downs, and been there to support him. So I hope you enjoy this conversation. So, hello. Are you a bit scared?
I'm a bit nervous, yes.
That's cool. So just be yourself, because you are enough. You know that already. So first question then really is when you think of Lloyd and the journey he's been on with this ease, this challenge in life, because we all have our own challenges. What comes up for you initially? Like how does it make you feel as a mum?
Many emotions come to mind. Things like guilt, things like feeling inadequate in some ways, because there's certain things that you're just not equipped to do, and certain knowledge that you don't have. But also feeling, to some extent, feeling like, happy is the wrong word, but feeling like it's okay that I'm there with him to take this path, if you like, that I was able to support him in any which way I could along this path, and just being present, even though I felt at times there wasn't much I could do. Just being present, I was glad I could do that.
So in terms of, like, he was diagnosed when he was 11, and you was with him throughout his teenage years. What, again, from a mother's perspective, what was that like? What was it like for him as a teenager? And you see all three of your sons grow up. What's it been like watching Lloyd grow up with Crohn's disease?
Well, it's quite heart-wrenching, obviously, because as every mother knows that has a child with a disease, you see your child suffering, and it isn't easy, not only for the sufferer, but also for the onlooker. So yeah, that has been heart-wrenching. And when I talk about guilt, I talk about sometimes I think mums can take on blame. They can feel somehow, did I do something wrong when the baby was in the womb? Did I not care for the baby properly when it was growing up? Or was there something that the child needed that I wasn't able or willing to give? Whatever. You're feeling those kinds of lack involved with the suffering of your child.
And how does that make you feel? I sense emotion even in your words as you're talking now.
It is an emotional journey. It's also a learning curve for both Lloyd and I, really. I suppose we have been united to some extent in illness and disease, which in itself can be challenging on the one hand, but also something develops out of that as well, a bond, if you like, quite a strong bond, I feel, certainly from my perspective anyway.
And when you say you've shared dis-ease as well, so you've had your own internal challenges through your own intestine as well. Is that what you mean by sharing that disease, or is was you mean as something else? Or do you mean sharing his disease?
Both, really. There is a commonality there. Certainly the family has a susceptibility to digestive diseases. So there is that commonality, but also I think when you are sharing the journey of somebody that is often vulnerable or challenged, then you feel a connection in that vulnerability. When people are almost cracked open, often by their suffering, and you see that not only vulnerability but innocence as well, and that's sometimes that can be wonderful, and sometimes that can be a bit scary too.
And it's interesting because you say, yeah, our family, and me included, have had digestive problems. I eat too fast. No, but totally, I know our family's had that. But also, actually, funnily enough, a majority of the population have got digestive tract problems. The great thing that Lloyd, recently doing this campaign and so on, what I've really learned through Lloyd's sharing his knowledge and the wisdom about the gut and about probiotics and so on, and through my years of looking at nutrition and the body, so actually through what we eat and through what's out there anyway, everybody could do with an internal look at their gut, what's going on, what food they're putting in, how that food affects them and so on. So from that perspective, let's talk about the first time he went into a hospital, because the first time he went into hospital, he was given steroids and so on. But, again, your son's going into hospital. What was it like when, because you've always been with him more so than me or my older brother Stephen, it's that you've always been there through that journey. So, again, you've had the outside perspective, and, what has it taught you about Lloyd, or, what was that like going into hospital and so on? Just touch on that a little bit.
It's a step into the unknown to some extent. You go into an institution like the medical profession, and you have the doctors and the nurses there, and they are getting on with their job, and often they don't have the time to inform you of what's happening, and very often I felt I would have liked to have had more information before certain procedures took place, or I would have felt more in control. Basically, I felt control was taken away from me as a parent, and Lloyd was taken under their wing, and Lloyd, being young also, didn't have the knowledge or the know-how or the strength even to ask questions.
And you too, right?
I didn't have a clue, and I didn't ask questions. I didn't feel I had any authority or even any right to ask questions in that situation. Like, authority was taken away from me, or I acquiesced to their authority somehow, and what happened basically. Yeah,
but also their authority, again, it's not to say their authority is bad, but that is what their belief. That's what they believe, and that's fine. And to some extent, they are helping people. But it's more about, like, the knowledge the more of the knowledge that you have now is different. So again, it's just that bridge between awareness, isn't it, of what is possible and what's out there, and what they know, because the medical profession they're not even talking or sharing or advocating what that Lloyd's trying to go on now. It's not like they're saying, okay, you can cut out your intestine and you can have an operation and take all these steroids, or you can take probiotics, change your diet completely, change your lifestyle and take all these supplements. They're not, that choice isn't there anyway.
No, but there's a huge gulf, isn't there, between the medical world and the alternative world, and their methods and their procedures are very different. The medical world, they do a great job, you know, with their medications, their drugs, and often with their treatments too, but it can be very intrusive and harsh. Their methods can be, although effective, can be, you know, very dramatic and quite a shock to the body and to those that are witnessing it as well.
Yeah, and I think I would question whether, I mean, they do. There's no question how great and the technology that we have and how we can operate on people and science. No question. I think with the joint, with the moving and awareness, that could be a lot more gentle, more supportive, and more consciously aware in terms of the way that they did do their procedures. But then that's uniting the bridge between holistic and alternative and the medical profession, and that might not, that bridge is very difficult when you think that the pharmaceutical companies are controlling a lot of what's going on in the society and in the medical profession anyway. But we won't go down that path too much, because obviously this is about Lloyd, this is about healing my brother to the best of our ability. So I suppose I suppose let's also want to know, yeah, what comes up from a mother's, again, always from, so you're a single mum, your son's in hospital, your son's got this dis-ease, he lives with it, he lives through his teenage years with it, and he's still living with it now, and you journey with it. You know, what about your vulnerabilities and any fears that surface that also other parents probably experience and witness when you don't have the capability financially to give him what he needs, or you can't look after him yourself because you also got to look after yourself, and you know you're just there sort of witnessing, yes, giving some support in the best that you can, but witnessing sort of witnessing without, what's the word I'm looking for? Witnessing without, you know, with the ability to do any more. What's that word I'm sort of thinking of? Not disabled witnessing, but you know what I mean? Trying to think of a word.
Sometimes I use the word impotence, because you do and can feel quite impotent, like you say. Lloyd very much wanted, as he got older, to go the alternative route, and as you rightfully said, the finances are just not there. The thing is, with the medical world, of course, you can, it's basically free, so you go in and you have the treatment, and there's no segregation or separation as to who gets it and who doesn't, and who can afford it and who cannot. With the alternative world, it's very different. You basically get access to what you can afford to buy in monetary terms. So, and we didn't have that. So that was very frustrating and very, it certainly brought up lots of issues about, excuse me, about poverty and being in a scarcity paradigm and acquiescing to lack in many ways. And I think one continues to find that a challenge.
And at times an element of anger.
Yeah, anger is, the thing is with anger, it's there, but often we suppress it because, again, I think, I can't speak for all mothers, but I sometimes feel guilty about my anger. I have a sick child who's now a young man, and he needs me, and I can't provide in some of those ways in which I would like to. I can't fulfill his needs in that way. So, and that makes me angry. But then if the anger comes up, then I tend to push it away because I feel it's inappropriate. Why am I angry that my son is sick? I can't feel that because I feel guilty about feeling angry that he's sick and needs this stuff from me, and I'm not able to give it to him in terms of the alternative medicine, in terms of even maybe the support he needs in some ways. Yes, I was there. Yes, I was present. Yes, I was supportive, but was it enough?
Yeah. So yeah, but you're bringing it back that he needs it from you. So are you angry? You're not angry that he's sick, but isn't that the anger's more directed at you're angry with yourself? You're angry with yourself because you don't have the money to heal him, or you don't have the capabilities of healing him. But that's also, you can't take that responsibility off. Once you've created somebody, like if I get sick, it's not your fault I get sick. If I go out and take drugs, or I go out and do something, or I go out and get a form of disease, whatever that might be, like if I go out and get an STD disease, or I go out and get something, and I've made a lot of those choices, so it's not your fault that I'm sick.
The thing is with Crohn's, I don't know that it comes from an actual lifestyle choice or a thought that somebody has made.
No, but it might come from stress, right?
Well, they don't really know. They say it can come from stress, or stress can ignite it, or set it off, make it worse.
Yeah, but what I mean is, you by you taking on that blame or guilt, it's not really serving your health, is it? Because how is your health? How is your health also diminished? Do you think your health has got worse, or also due to is there any resemblance to that? Like knowing that your son was sick, and then knowing, because you was almost diagnosed with Crohn's, but you don't have Crohn's, but you do have inflammatory intestines, right?
Well, they said it was Crohn's, but I didn't have some of the symptoms that Crohn's sufferers get. So there was like, they thought it might be in the small bowel, Crohn's there. But there is some...
But it was clear in the end?
Well, there was some inflammation at one point which was treated, and then it's been clear since.
Yeah.
So that's good.
But also you've suffered from, inflamed bowels and so on.
Yeah, I've had similar problems to Lloyd, but Lloyd's manifests in a very different way to mine, and it is individual. There are some symptoms which seem to, which most people seem to be affected by, but it can be a very individual experience depending on who's suffering from it.
Yeah, and also in terms of your own journey as an individual, through your family and your path and so on, you've had to also do this as a one parent, single parent, not one parent, single parent. Yeah. So there might be anger around that sometimes, that you've had to do this on your own, and that his father's not been around, or there's not been any support for you, because that can play, that anger, that guilt and so on. What I'm saying is that can play very much in your own unfolding of your own life, that creates dis-ease, whether that dis-ease shows up in the body or not, but it can show up mentally, physically, emotionally and so on. So you've had to deal with that throughout, and I'm not trying to paint a bad picture here, but I'm just trying to get to the, just to express and share with people watching this video, who, just to look at the emotional ripples that go both ways, not just from Lloyd having Crohn's and rippling out, but also your experience of your own disease and dysfunction from having, being a single parent and not having the certain resources that you want, and getting your own diseases that you've had from, the operations that you've had to have and so on, and how that also ripples out as well, because it's all energy, isn't it? So I'm interested in how challenging that was for you as an individual. Because you're very good at giving, and you're very good at putting out, and you always think, okay, well, that's my son, I've got to look after him, or that's Simon or Lloyd or Stephen. But also at times that's been at detriment to your own health, right?
Well, maybe it has been, but I think more to the point would be that probably I haven't supported Lloyd to the extent that he needed, or haven't been able to do that to the extent that he needed. One, because I felt, as you rightfully say, on my own in the process, didn't have anybody to support me, or at least to walk side by side and share the suffering. So in that way, it may have had a detrimental effect emotionally, definitely, both on Lloyd and myself.
But without also putting out an expectation that it would have been better if it was any other way, because it doesn't mean that it would have been better if his dad stayed around, and it doesn't mean that it might have necessarily been a better experience if you had money. Because you've got to be careful when you take the pressure onto yourself and take it on that, you know, it could have been better or you wasn't there for Lloyd, because that's powerful intentions in those words.
Well, it's not that I don't think I was there for him. I definitely was there for him. I just feel that maybe he needed more. Maybe he needed something different. And that's okay. You know, you do what you do and you do the best you can in the given situation.
Which is what mothers do anyway, right? And you've done a great job. You've been a great mum.
Thank you.
You know, at times you don't think you have, but you've been a great mum. Because you've done everything on your own. You've been a fighter, cared for us all, and you still support us in the best way you can. And at times I think as parents you have to really acknowledge that, you know, you've done your work at a certain point and you have to be able to let that go then, you know?
Yeah, you're right, because to some extent I as a mum can identify with a child that's unwell, and I can make that part of what identifies me. So take Lloyd away and take his illness away, his disease, and in a way, because we've journeyed this far, which has been quite a few years, that will be part of my identity gone.
So are you saying that for him to get better, is there an attachment to that identity though? Or you just mean it makes up your identity? Like if all of a sudden he was better tomorrow, yeah, because we hold on to our identity, how does that feel? Does that feel good for you? Of course, I'm sure on one level it does, but also what is there an element of fear to that as well? That you might lose that lifestyle?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Really?
Well, I don't know if it's fear, but it's unsettling. You know, yes, of course you want your child well, you want him to have the best quality of life he can possibly have. That's without question. But there's still a part of, okay, so one day, very soon, I'm sure, he's going to be very, very well. He's going to be far more independent in that. Fantastic, that's just what he needs, that independency. And I'm going to need to take that step backwards. In fact, maybe I need to do that now even, take a step backwards and let him go. Or let the identity of caring for a sick child go, and also his need to have me around. Not in a neediness way, but just in a supportive way while he's going through this. Well, once he is out the other end, then, okay, that means I let go and I step away. So it is unsettling. Yeah,
the idea of letting go is always unsettling. But maybe if you let go, if you start to nurture that and embody that now, that could actually be a great support, probably more of a support than you think that you're supporting sometimes when we do maybe have a codependent relationship or an attachment to a certain identity, and could actually be a big support for the next year ahead of his healing.
Yeah, again, it's new territory. You think, okay, you know, you need to step back and let go to some extent, and then you think, okay, quite how do I do that?
Yeah, because sometimes it's an intangible experience, so it's not like you go, but
because we're talking not just physically, we're talking about emotional attachments, aren't we? So and they can be very binding without realizing it. So to bring those into awareness, I think, is essential in anybody's healing, to bring those agreements, those bonds, those things that bind us subconsciously, to bring those into awareness is important and an essential part of the healing.
And could be an essential part in your own healing.
Yeah, when I say healing, absolutely. I mean, you know, for both of us, definitely. Yeah.
To embody that responsibility, self-love, letting go, self-knowing, trusting in the individual's own strength. Trusting
yeah.
individual,
trust
you know.
is such an important word, isn't it?
Because if you
Simon?
die tomorrow, Lloyd's still going to go on his healing journey.
And he's going to be absolutely fine.
Yeah, if you leave this body tomorrow,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and if Lloyd leaves the body tomorrow, you're going to still live on and have to go through the process that you're going to go. So it's funny, isn't it? It's like there's almost an emptiness to it all, because at the end of the day, we're totally alone in our own journey, but within that, when we truly embody that aloneness, there isn't actually an aloneness. There's more of a connection. But often we want to hold on to the idea of a connection, which actually creates a dependency and a fear, which makes the idea of disconnecting even more scarier than death itself, which is quite interesting. Whereas when we truly embody that we're here and we can trust ourselves and find all the resources and the power within us as an individual, it's the paradox, because the irony is that's when you truly get supported. But more often than not, through our fear, we're trying to get supported by something exteriorly, or some other person, or some other thing, or some other institute or organisation or something. Whereas then there becomes this expectation, condition and judgment based on that, whatever it is, whatever form it takes. Whereas when we can let go of all of that and go, right, I'm here, what do I need to do? What do I need to do to tune in? And I'm gonna, you know, I arrived here and I'm gonna leave here, wherever here is, and does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense, because when you're challenged...
I'm glad it does for you.
I think. Yeah, because when you're challenged in that way, i.e. with a sick family member, somebody that has a disease, your trust in yourself, in your own capacity to do what you need to do at that given time, at that given moment, is so important. And in the absence of that, things can fall to pieces very, very quickly, as I think they sometimes did, because I think both for Lloyd, and I don't speak for him, but I think for him, and certainly for me, there wasn't always that inner strength, that inner trust for one's own capacity to do what needs to be done.
Yeah, and probably a reliance on you both sometimes that created a procrastination. Yeah, because like Lloyd might be sick and want you to do something that you can't do, and you can't do it, so you feel vulnerable that you can't do it. So you actually find yourselves both in a space of you know, conflict, but within that a dependency, you know, and then actually that going around in the circle, which creates a procrastination, almost like a stagnation at times.
It's like a dance, isn't it? You know, it's very hard to articulate, but you have in that expectation of one another, whether you're the sick person or the carer, in that expectation there is again non-verbal subconscious communication going on, and so often we don't say what we're thinking, and we're so guarded with that thinking because we make all kinds of excuses, like, oh, the person's not ready to hear that, or I can't say that'll make me a horrible person, or if I reveal that I'm not happy about something, that I actually don't want to do something, then that makes me discompassionate, you know, in a given situation where, especially when you're the carer and looking after somebody else, all that comes up definitely. But would it be different if we were able to actually speak what we're really feeling, or would that make the situation worse?
Well, it's a great question. You know, I would say it makes it better, because I'm a transparent advocate, you know, is that when you truly share what it is you're thinking and feeling, and even if you bring that to the surface, there's healing in that, which then can also create a base then for the foundation of the real healing to take place.
Yeah.
So I mean, if we get out of the way of all that preconceived crap,
which is a barrier.
Yeah, which is a barrier. Whereas like when like for example, when last year, when Lloyd wanted me to read the books. And I, you remember it was in the hallway, and I just said, I can't read the books. You remember? And it was he was quite offended by that. At the time, he was very disappointed about that. And you couldn't cook the food because you was sick. You was feeling sick. And then like we was looking after him, but I wasn't here. I was going out still and coming in because I was trying to make some money and do the things that I was doing. And you felt very, at times you were crying. At times you was like, you felt, you were cooking the food, but it wasn't good enough. You wasn't able to give him the attention he needed. Right? So there was also at times an element of resentment coming up through like, well, there's this passive aggressiveness going on where, he's clearly sick and he's looking after, but you can't do it, and anything that you're doing is not enough. Because there was that pushing on there, and then also I wasn't able to come in and step in and take over from that space as well.
I think when Lloyd got very sick, just before one of the times he went into hospital, may have been the last time, I don't know, the timeline gets a bit skew-if in my head, but he refused to go into hospital. Do you remember that? And I think all this was going on around the time when he was getting sicker and sicker and refusing to go into hospital out of fear, which I could understand totally. He didn't want to go through the whole process of having another operation, etc. And hospitals are not the best place to be if you're feeling like you just don't want to be there. So I think an element of me was thinking, I can't do anything for you. I don't, in terms of making him well. He was lying on his bed. He was very sick, no energy. His hemoglobin was right down to 4. He wasn't functioning. His skin was yellow, and he was in pain and discomfort. So, and I'm thinking, why don't you, because he's an adult, I wanted to step back and let him make his own choices and own decisions on the one hand, and on the other hand I thought, I need to be getting him to hospital. So I felt very divided and torn in some of the situations that we found ourselves in, and this was one of them. And does resentment come up? Maybe it does. Maybe there is some resentment there in the form of, why don't you just take responsibility for this? Because I can't. Or
or not understanding.
And not,
because you don't understand, you didn't understand, or maybe you're not in it, experiencing it, so you don't understand really the level, the layers of what.
Of course not. Lloyd is my son, but it doesn't mean to say I have an insight into what he's going through and what he's truly experiencing, as an individual, as another human being, because I really didn't have that empathy sometimes. I couldn't communicate or resonate with him on that level sometimes.
And we also all have our own boundary and trigger point. Like I know when I'm sick, and I know when I need to stop, and I know when I'm, if I'm in the process. I don't say, and I've been in many situations where I know I'm dying, but like Lloyd and himself, or you and yourself, like some days if I think that you're not very well, only you can monitor that. I don't know what you're experiencing. If you've got pain in your stomach, or you're not going to the toilet, or whatever it might be that's causing you unease, or if I've got a pain in my stomach and you say to me, how are you, or I've got a headache or something, and I just say, oh, well, I've got a headache. You don't know the pain that I'm experiencing in that place.
I can't physically feel that, no.
And if I come back to you and say I've got eye ache today, you might go, okay, well, he mentions he's got eye ache a few times, so maybe that's like a migraine. Is it like a headache? I wonder what it feels like. You don't know. So it's only our own monitor that we can take responsibility of, like, right, I need to go to hospital, or I'm dying, or this is really bad, or if you cut your finger, you look at it and you go, that's all right, put a bit of water on that and a plaster. Or you look at it and go, my finger's hanging off, that needs stitches. You just what I mean. We have our own
gauge, isn't it?
Our own gauge.
Yeah.
So you're not aware of that gauge, but it could be frustrating when you don't know somebody else's gauge.
But sometimes we are, though. That's the thing, you see, if you have the knowledge. You see, if you have certain knowledge and something happens to somebody, then to some extent you can gauge it. But I think once, because Lloyd is an adult, you know, it started in his teenage years, but then clearly he became an adult. I think that changes to some extent, whereas I am no longer the mother gauging everything for Lloyd. He now has his own gauge, and
he's lived with it for a long time.
And yeah, exactly, his own knowledge of it.
Cool. Anything else coming up that you feel that we need to share? Just for the people watching, it's just like I wanted to create an insight into a little bit more depth into the story, and also to meet Mum who's journeyed with him. So it's nice also for me to sit down with my mum and talk about this and to get this out, because I feel that as part of the journey of Lloyd's healing it's often we're taking our own individual path and we think that it's all us, but it's actually everybody around us. So one of the things that I've learned about healing through transparent communication is that even in my family, you know, with my elder brother and my mum and Lloyd and the family bond that we've had, like for example, my auntie at the moment, I was told recently, we haven't spoke to her for a long time, I was told recently she's got cancer of the colon, wasn't it? Cancer of the colon. So I'm like, whoa, here's another family member who's now got cancer. She's been an alcoholic for a long time. She's got cancer of the colon. And it was told to me recently. So I'm like, whoa, there's a whole thing going on here. So one of the things sometimes is not to say that her experience is due to this and it's all necessarily interconnected, but what does happen is when there's massive pain or stress in anybody's life, the gut is a big place where you take a lot of that. You take a lot of that pain. And what I also noticed through meditation and transparent communication is that when you start to communicate how you're truly thinking and feeling, in the family unit first, in your relationships, and then out into the community and then out into the world, you actually release a lot of the tension and pain and the anger and frustration that builds up in the body, which harbors disease. Do you see what I mean? And this is happening in everybody. This is why me and Lloyd are really passionate about this and blowing the lid on healing from the perspective of universal global healing of us as a species. Where some people have even described the human species as a disease on the planet right now. You might have heard that term, is that actually we are 60 trillion cells making up one cell, and that as our cells are becoming more and more dysfunctional or disease-ridden with all these diseases that the man is creating, we're actually becoming a disease on the planet because of the way that we're acting from that foundation. Can you see that? So, you know, so when we go micro, macro, and we go within our own space and we start to heal ourselves, then heal our family unit, then start to communicate like this, you start to really see the power of communication and also the link between ourselves communicating. Because I don't know, you know a little bit about Bruce Lipton, but Bruce Lipton talks about two cells not being able to be in the same place at any one time. And if a cell is in protection, or in growth, it can't be in the same place. And then he likens the two stages as protection being fear and growth being love. So when you start to communicate more from a place of growth, elevation, expression, communication, you embody a reality like that. And when you start to communicate from a place of protection, fear, separation, dis-ease, you start to embody that within your cell structure, your cellular structure. So can you see how that might correlate in not thinking that you're Bonnie and I'm Simon and that's a family, but looking just as us as cells on the planet with all the other cells. Can you see that? I love it when we just take it straight into, you know, but can you see that? But do you want to share what comes up for you when I say that, and then we'll sort of end it and round it off from that place, because I think that's...
You're talking about this connection, I guess, you know, this...
And with your sister who's got cancer, right?
Yeah, this family and also universal connection, if you like, and where disease comes from, where it grows from, grows out of. And yes, we know it's imbalance, and it's imbalance between the physical and the physiological and the mental and the emotional. And what was coming up for me when you was talking about all this stuff was, you know, a lot of emotional stuff in terms of what our family's been going through in terms of abandonment issues.
Big time. Nan and Granddad, but carry on.
In terms of, you know, lack, poverty paradigm,
Physical abuse, emotional abuse when you was younger.
Absolutely, all this horrible stuff which, and I say horrible because it separates and it segregates, and you become very guarded around that, and you build walls, and these walls divide, and they shut you down to such an extent that, you know, you're no longer communicating very well as a family, and therefore you're no longer communicating very well with society, and therefore you're no longer communicating universally with your life. You're not experiencing life because you're just totally, completely and utterly shut down.
Yeah.
And that's what comes up. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the tragedy of it.
There's a lot of, it creates a lot of sadness.
Yeah.
Separation. You've seen that in the family unit with Nan and Granddad, and then you've seen it in Tina going away, your brother going away, and then in the relationships, you know. And because then what we do is when we're in that place of protection, we attract more protection. Other people that are also in a place of protection.
Because people are in such fear, you know?
Because that's what we attract, because that's what we're in.
Exactly. And you see all this fear manifesting in the people that you love and care about. And it is just tragedy.
But also there's a beauty in that. There's a beauty in that awareness.
There's a beauty in the awareness.
If we don't label that as it is a tragedy, but the awareness brings it into light and enables us for the walls to drop. Because even in this moment, I know it's upsetting for you, but even in this moment, don't let my words say what's happening here, of course, but can you see how the walls can disintegrate in that moment?
Yeah, and there's an inner heart opening in that when you can touch that truth and, you know, that inner truth, and when you can be transparent, which is the amazing work that you're doing, you can literally feel all this stuff that binds and confines and holds you. You can feel it fall away. And in that moment, there's total acceptance. Because you can say to yourself, yes, this stuff happened. And that's the tragedy of it. But also it happened. And now we're becoming aware of it. And in this truth, there is, in the truth of what happened, the truth of what is, there is complete and utter healing and the falling away of all that was. That's amazing. Yep. Yeah.
That's nice.
And we are all one.
You're sounding like a guru.
No. We are all one in our experience.
Yeah.
We are having experience, and that's what unites us, experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. Wonderful place to end. Wonderful place to end. Emotional moments with my mum on the sofa. And I hope you enjoyed that conversation. This is a talk that we've put together for Healing Thy Brother, but it seems to be doing a lot of healing for a lot of different reasons. And yeah, I'm just sending that awareness out to also the other people that are experiencing dis-ease right now, whatever that dis-ease is in your family, in your life. Out to my auntie, my mum's mum, who is also feeling a lot of dis-ease right now, and everybody else out there. So yeah, thank you for tuning in. Let's allow the walls of separation to crumble as we evolve into a new state of awareness. Thank you for listening. I always hug everyone.